The infected. They're everywhere these days, and when you eventually become one in Left 4 Dead 2, you need to know how to carry yourself. Playing infected in versus mode is a very different game to playing survivors, and naturally a lot of new players will struggle to get to grips with this. So I offer you the 5 rules of Left 4 Dead 2 for special infected. If you can take these points on board and try to apply them, I guarantee you will be a better Left 4 Dead 2 infected player. So, let us begin. Rule number 1. Don't spawn too early. Okay, intro clip again, just listen this time though. Now, as you probably noticed there was a whole lot of noise when you're alive as infected. So once you've spawned in like this boomer here, the survivors can hear all the noise you're making. And naturally, they're going to have a guess at where you are, fire some shots through this wooden door because they're not bulletproof, and well, it's a complete waste of an infected life. Infected lives matter, goddammit. Here's another one, a smoker that spawned in early by himself, and all the survivors can hear exactly where he is, and they'll slaughter him before he can do anything useful. In this clip, I can hear charger noises coming from over here, and it's the only place I know that a charger could spawn. I'm going to keep running along downside this fence to make him think I don't know that he's there, and bait out his charge. Which works, and he completely wastes his charge doing nothing. So, understand, when you spawn too early, the survivors can hear you and they will figure you out. They'll either try and take you out before you can do anything, or try and bait you out and use your own noise against you. This is probably the biggest mistake that new players make, not realizing the importance of audio in Left 4 Dead 2. So, what can you do as a newer player to stop this? Well, it's obviously very simple. Stop spawning so early. You want to spawn a second or two before your intended attack. This gives the survivors very little time to react to the audio feedback that they get from you spawning in and being around. You just saw me do it with the boomer there. Here's another one with the smoker at the start of Dead Center. This is a common smoker spot. You're going to see a guy looking at this place already, waiting for me to be here because he's expecting it. But still, I'm not going to spawn to the last second, making this other guy think it's safe. And then I'm going to pull him off the edge, hopefully setting up my teammates to make some plays. Or not. Another one here is the spitter, and I'm trying to work with this charger. I'm waiting for him to charge somebody, but he hasn't spawned in yet either because he knows he'll be heard. He spawns in before he makes his attack, goes for it, I do the same, and we're going to get an in cap on this guy because we had the element of surprise and they had very little time to react and nothing they could do to stop us. If we had both spawned in, they would hear us and expect the attack and probably be able to avoid it. And this is also very crucial for insta-kill type things. With charges out of windows, very common. I'm going to spawn last second, charge this guy out of the window. If I was sat there waiting as the charger already spawned in, they'd hear me and they'd come back to shoot me before I did anything. So spawn last second and use the element of surprise. It's an ambush, the simplest of strategies. The only exception to this rule is the hunter, because while every other special infected will make a specific noise when it spawns in and when it's running around, the hunter is completely silent in both. You can spawn in silently and run around completely silently. It's not until you crouch and prepare for a pounce does the hunter make any noise. So realize the importance of audio and not giving yourself away by spawning too early. Ambushes are the key. Spawn and go, as I always tell people on the stream. Spawn and go, spawn and go. That means spawn and attack straight away. Here we go. Spawn and go. Attack. Spawn and go. It's not spawn, wait around and then go, because that gives them time to react. Spawn and go so the bastards have no time to see you coming. Reloading. Rule number 2. Attack together. Much like the survivors, the infected need to work together as a team. And this jockey is a shining example of why. Because when you charge into a crowd of healthy survivors by yourself, you do sweet fuck all. This means you need to pay attention to your teammates, where they are, what it looks like they're planning to do, and try to all attack together. You can see here I'm waiting for the charger and the boomer to go because some infected are better at going first than others. If a jockey goes first, he's probably going to get knocked off and killed straight away. So I'm going to wait for an attack to come in, grab someone myself. The smoker's just come out. He's going to grab the guy that comes to save the guy from me. And well, we get a good bit of damage here. We got about 60 points of damage because we worked together as a team. If we attacked one by one, we probably would have got about 10 points. Here's another example. Hunter's going in, Charger's coming in after him. Charger's a great distraction. I'm going to smoke somebody. Spitter's going to come in and get involved, and they're distracted trying to take out the Charger now, which buys me time to do damage as the smoker and to keep this guy in the spit, which the Spitter has provided, and we're going to do a nice bit of damage in capping a survivor because we worked together. The key thing that's happening here is distraction. When all infected attack at the same time, the survivors can't deal with them all at the same time. They have to deal with them one at a time, which means it buys time for each of the different infected. You can see it happening here. The guy's trying to save someone from a Charger, which has bought me time as the hunter to smash this guy's face off. Another example here, a boom's just gone off. I'm going to come in as a jockey, grab the guy that can see, as the other ones are blind. The Chargers come in the train, the Spitters come in the train. Those three are all getting stuck by zombies in the train and downed by Spit. And well, that's all she wrote for this team. Because we worked together. So realize you are on a team and in a team cooperative game, even when you're playing infected. It's not just survivors that need to work together. So in future, before you spawn in, pay attention to the timers on your teammates at the bottom of the screen. You see here, I could spawn in and dive down right now as a jockey, but I'd be just like that guy we saw at the start of the rule, and I'll do absolutely nothing. So I'm simply going to wait for my teammates to be ready to spawn so we can all attack together, especially as there's about to be an event coming up in this particular level. And it's also a case of paying attention to the outlines of your teammates. You can see here I've got a Charger on my left, a jockey on my right. I've already spawned in because I tried an attack but decided to pull back. Now everyone's moving in, I'm going to move in as well. And you can see we're all attacking together, which is giving the survivors a lot to deal with, a lot of distractions. There's only one guy that hasn't been affected. He's now got to try and save everyone. The other guy's been boomed over there. And we're doing a ton of damage because we're attacking together. Now, with all that being said, there are still times and situations where attacking alone is justified, like particularly insta-kills for Chargers. You can see here, I'm attacking completely alone, but I'm going to run a guy off the roof, so it's worth it. Boomers can also be good for attacking alone, because if you can get a successful boom on a couple of people, it's going to slow that enemy team down fairly well, which also buys time for the rest of your team and yourself to respawn. But there are times where attacking alone is justified for all special infected. You can see this smoker's getting a grab here. He saw an opportunity with a guy who'd run too far ahead by himself and had isolated himself, which is what I was trying to do as well. But I'm going to get the guy that comes to save him instead, which is also a good tactic. If somebody grabs somebody who's isolated, don't attack the person they've grabbed. Wait for the next person to come along and save them and then get them instead. The same idea here. I'm going to try and pounce on the last person through this door to try and grab them, but a smoker has the same idea. You can see has grabbed him. I could have pounced on Coach there, but it would have been a waste of the smoker. Instead, I'm going to buy time for the smoker by pouncing on the next person to come along who was going to try and save him. And you can see a bit of teamwork is happening even though we weren't planning it. So while attacking together is the main strategy to aim for, there are times and situations where it's okay to attack alone. Just use some common sense. So, attack together is rule number 2, and honestly, these first 2 rules, don't spawn too early and attack together. If you can follow these rules and apply them, this will make you a much better infected player, even if you don't watch the rest of this video. Those 2 alone is what I'm always telling people, spawn and go and attack together. Simple rules that can make a big difference. Rule number 3, prey on the isolated. Once in a while when playing survivors, you'll end up with a chucklehead on your team that likes to run off ahead of everyone else, or sometimes one that falls too far behind and is super slow. These people often isolate themselves, opening them up to be grabbed by special infected. And as the rest of the team isn't nearby, they'll take a bunch of damage, which they'll probably blame their teammates for. These are in fact our favourite kind of people as infected because they give us easy opportunities. When someone falls behind like this poor fella here, they're going to get grabbed and they're going to get a lot of damage done because their teammates aren't protecting them. So keep an eye out for those slowpokes or those who have just run off by themselves, even if only for a few seconds. That can be enough of an opportunity. Like here, I've noticed that this guy has run on ahead downstairs by himself and the rest of the team is distracted by this jockey, which means I smell an opportunity to prey on the isolated. So this guy is running off ahead. I'm going to hide behind this pillar and pull him behind it so his friends can't easily save him from up on that balcony, and I shall proceed to slap his face off. And because his teammates aren't nearby because he isolated himself, he's going to get downed before they can save him. Another example here is a jockey. I failed my initial attack, but I'm still lingering around waiting for an opportunity, and I get one. This Nick player here is facing towards me and hasn't realized that the rest of his team has run away from him. So I'm going to try and grab him, successfully grab him, and then take him for a walk to have a chat about his performance. His brief isolation allowed me a chance to get damage on him and to pull the rest of his team back to come and save him, buying time for us infected. Sometimes though, survivors don't want to isolate themselves, so we have to encourage them. Forcefully, usually, which means dragging them into areas where the rest of the survivors can't save them. These kind of death drops on all the maps, where once you drop down you can't get back up for the survivors, these are the perfect opportune places to try and grab survivors and isolate them. So you'll want to try and pay attention and learn where these places are on each map, and also learn which special infected are good for grabbing people in these situations. This jockey here is going to be a shining example. This is the second map on Last Stand at the Watchtower. This is a good place. I know people can't get back up once they drop down here, so I'm going to wait for whoever the last man is and try and grab him. So we're just waiting patiently for an opportunity, not spawning too early, of course. One guy's coming down. I think he's going to drop down, but he waits for his teammate, so he's a good teammate. He's waiting. However, he's made a fatal flaw here by standing so close to the edge, because I know that there's a little bit of knockback when you jump on somebody as the infected, which knocks back other survivors. So if I aim for Bill, which I do, it's going to give me that knockback and knock Francis down, meaning this poor little dolphin is going to be isolated and alone in this point where the survivors can't get back up to save him. I've created isolation by using a part of the map. These are some of those times that you can justify attacking alone. And one small tip for tracking down the isolated, when you're in the spawn phase, if you press the action button, which I think by default is E, I have it bound to F, but I think it's E normally. If you press that button while you're in the spawn phase, you'll be able to cycle through the different survivors and choose which one you want to spawn on. This can be incredibly useful for getting near those isolated people quickly. As you'll see here, I'm just about to respawn and I notice that there's a runner in the distance. A yellow health Rochelle is trying to get away. I'm going to cycle through the survivors, spawn on Rochelle, and teach her a lesson about needlessly abandoning her team. And that is rule number 3. When somebody falls behind or runs too far ahead or runs a different way to everybody else or runs off to look somewhere by themselves, get them. Rule number 4. Use resources. Now, when I say resources, I'm not talking about the same resources that the survivors have, like Molotovs, medkits, and pipe bombs, but in fact environmental resources that the infected have. Useful parts of the map or things within the map that can be taken advantage of by the infected to harm those goddamn survivors. The biggest one to try and take advantage of is insta-kill spots, mostly performed by chargers, but jockeys and smokers can make things happen too. These are specific points on the map, some of which are very obvious, some are a little bit more hidden like this one. You don't necessarily realize that you could be charged off the roof here, but if you get the right angle, it's bye-bye survivor. These are going to be the type of thing that you'll learn over time as you see people do them or as you accidentally do them yourself. Like I say, some are more obvious like this one out the window. So if you get a charger around these certain points as you learn them, you should try to go for the insta-kill. There's a good chance you might mess it up, but whatever. You don't get any good practice unless you try, so you might as well have a go and maybe you'll kill a survivor. And other infected can help out the charger to get these insta-kills as well, as you're going to see this smoker do. He's going to grab one just so it keeps them in my line long enough so that I can charge them out the window. Smokers and jockeys can be great for pulling survivors off ledges and edges, which although doesn't do much damage, it does slow them down and create a very awkward situation, allowing other infected to help slow them down and to keep that person hanging. So see those edges as resources. Another environmental resource to take advantage of is car alarms. Smokers are the best at pulling survivors into this, but a whole bunch of infected can set them off. This will of course bring a horde, which is going to help to slow the survivors down or maybe do some damage to help take them out. If you can't make a survivor reach the car though, you can always try and make them shoot it by simply dancing around it like a maniac and bait them into shooting you. Or for boomers, you can simply stand next to alarmed cars, and if you get blown up, you will set off the car alarm, provided the survivors are near enough to it. Also, those death drops, like we mentioned earlier, places where the survivors can drop down but can't get back up, those are a resource to be used because the survivors will either not be able to get back up at all or they'll take some time to get back up. Either way, using these parts of the map translates to damage. And these, just like insta-kills for charges, are what you should go for when you get certain infected in certain areas. When you get a smoker on this part of No Mercy, go for that death drop spot, because sometimes they will result in the death of a survivor. Edgy, angry little girls in their underwear is also a resource to be... Oh, I can't say that. I can't say that. Witches are another resource to take advantage of, because if you let the survivors crown them and instantly kill them, it's a big waste. So like this smoker here, pull them into her if you need to, or simply dance around her and try to make some dopey survivor shoot her, which will make her of course go mental, chase after them, and then you can all dive in to try and add to the carnage. Also, if she's slightly aggroed by a nearby survivor, if you run up as any infected and give her a quick slap, she'll instantly go off and go nutso, chasing down whoever the nearest survivor was. If you see a witch, it's often a good idea for everyone to save their infected lives and all attack together when the witch goes off. And a few last random resources to make use of. Fire is a good one, although there's not a lot of good places to make use of fire. There is some fire in certain levels which will kill survivors very, very quickly, like this little middle bit in this part of Dead Center. This burns people to death in a matter of seconds, more so than other fire spots in the level. Narrow passages and choke points are a great place for chargers to set up their attack, or for boomers because all the survivors will be together, so things like bridges, staircases and hallways can be very dangerous. Small type places are also great for spitters. If you get all the survivors in one little tiny room of some kind, spit in there and it's going to be all kinds of carnage, especially if there's zombies in there as well, slowing them down. Spitters can very often end the round if they get a good spit in this kind of situation. And the last resource, which I'm not going to talk about too much because I did intend to put a whole rule on the tank in this video, but I decided it's a bit too much for one little point. So I'm going to make a separate video on how to play the tank properly, because it is a resource to be used and of course can end rounds very well if used correctly. If used incorrectly, then well, this happens. When that video's up, I'll link it at the end of this video. Rule number 5. Buy time. So, as you may have learned from my 5 rules for survivors in versus mode video, time is very important for the infected. The longer we can keep the survivors in the level by slowing them down, the more respawns we can get and potentially the more damage we can do. This all really begins with boomers. Boomers are the most important special infected because they can really slow an enemy team down, buying time for all the other infected to respawn and come and do damage. Booms will of course spawn hordes, which even if it only gets one person can slow the team down, which is a good buying of time. Without any booms through a level, it's very easy for teams to just run through a level without really being stopped by anything and blitzing through the level in a short amount of time. So realize when you get control of that chunky bath bag, you wield a lot of power in your hands. You are the main infected that can really slow down the survivor team. So be sure to try not to waste them and to at least get a boom on somebody. Because boomers win games, my friend. Boomers win games. Boomers can also be exceptionally powerful on downed or incapacitated survivors, because a horde will be able to kill them very quickly if they don't have any kind of support, and if they do have support trying to revive them, it can make that very difficult too, because the revive bar that a survivor gets when they're reviving another survivor keeps getting reset every time a zombie or any kind of infected hits that downed survivor. So it can be nearly damn impossible for a survivor to revive a downed ally when zombies are constantly charging at them. And as you can see here, even though 2 of them were trying hard, they couldn't save the downed boomed on survivor. So aside from booming on survivors to slow them down, just anything you can do to slow them down and to buy just even 5 or 10 extra seconds can really pay off in some situations. Over here I see a downed Francis being revived. I'm going to rush my ass over there to try and slap the downed Bill so that he gets downed again. So he's trying to revive him, slap him back down, he has to reset and start again. So sometimes it can be worth kind of sacrificing yourself, or if you're nearly dead, sacrificing yourself to keep slapping that downed survivor so that they stay down, and it gives time for everybody on your team to respawn and hopefully to finish them off. So be sure to think of ways on how to slow the survivors down. Spitters can give some area denial in certain situations, which isn't the best use of spitters, but in this part of this level, we're getting desperate. And that is in fact going to pay off later. So we're buying some time now with these downed survivors. There's going to be a smoker in a second who's going to pull someone off an edge. And again, that's going to buy us time. It's not going to do any damage to Bill, who's just been pulled off the edge. They're going to get him straight back up there, but it's buying 5 or 10 seconds for respawns, which can add up if everyone's getting 5 or 10 seconds every now and again. Because that adds up over time into extra respawns, extra lives, and it means in this case I'm going to get a charger right before they get into the safe area of the map and take Francis for a little ride downtown. So find ways to slow the survivors down and buy yourself and your allies time to respawn. Even a simple boom on a single target can be powerful in the right situation. If they can't defend themselves very well, they're gonna get the crap kicked out of them. Using jockeys and smokers to pull survivors back through parts of the map they've already been through, forcing them to run round again, can also be a good play in certain parts of the map. There's a variety of ways to slow the bastards down. So there you go, the 5 rules for Special Infected in Left 4 Dead 2. But hold up, I'm not done yet. For all of you good people who have taken the time to watch this video all the way through, I offer you my super secret pro bastard tips. Oh yeah, let's have a look. So, super secret pro bastard tip number 1 is that no matter how good your ping and everyone else's ping in the server is, there's always a bit of lag on the survivors. Allow me to demonstrate. I'm lining up Zoe here for the kill. I'm going to take a pounce and oh, look at this. I seem to have missed. Zoe is here. I am here next to her. I've clearly missed, right? But oh no. I've actually pounced her for 18 damage, meaning I've landed directly on top of her. But as we saw, I wasn't anywhere near her, really. So basically, every player in the game has a little bit of lag on them, which is no fault of anyone's, it's just how the game is. But it only affects you on Special Infected, because where the person is on your screen isn't actually where they are in their game, which means there's a little bit of latency and lag going on, which can make things frustrating and difficult for Infected. So realize, when a survivor is here on your screen, they're actually probably about here. So you need to kind of lead the target and attack where they're going to be in about half a second or a second's time. If you've ever tried to attack a survivor and you feel like you've gone straight through them, this is why. Because they're not really there where you've aimed to try and attack them. Here's another example on a Bill I think is going to keep running in a straight line. So I tried to line him up, and as you can see, it looks like I've completely missed, right? But hell no, he's actually 2 or 3 feet ahead of where he really is appearing on my screen. So you need to aim ahead of where that person is. Here's one in slow-mo. You'll see I'm not really anywhere near him, but I'm going to get the charge all the same. So that's pro tip number 1. Aim a little bit ahead of where the survivor actually is, because there is some lag going on. This is what can make it so hard for jockeys to jump on people, because they're never actually there when you're jumping in a straight line like they do. So it's really difficult if you don't try to cater to that lag. So aim ahead to make the grab. Pro Bastard tip number 2 is all about spawning and line of sight. Because you can spawn in places that you might not expect if you can simply break line of sight with all the survivors. You can see him trying to do it behind this thin pillar here, and the moment that all 4 survivors are out of line of sight of me behind this pillar, I'm able to spawn, even though realistically they would be able to see my big ass charger shoulders sticking out from behind it. But if I can break my line of sight with all 4 of them, I can spawn. Here's another example with a spitter. I'm going to use these trees, and all I have to do is get all 4 of the survivors behind the tree, and I'm able to spawn. You can see here, really they would be able to see me if I spawn here, but because my line of sight with them is broken, I'm able to spawn. So using this way, even the thinnest of objects can provide you a spawn point if you can get all 4 of the survivors kind of behind it, so line of sight is broken. This can even be done with like a lamp post or something. Doesn't really matter how thin it is, as long as you can get all 4 survivors hidden behind it from your view at the same time, you'll be able to spawn. And my final super secret pro bastard tip honestly isn't much of a secret, it's just a basic game feature, but a lot of new players don't seem to know you can do this. Once you've spawned, or if you spawn somewhere you don't like behind the survivors, if you run backwards through the level and get some distance from the survivors, you'll be able to respawn. As you can see, you'll be met with this message: too far from survivors. It's F key for me to respawn, but for most people it might be E. But if you press that, you'll be able to respawn. It doesn't give you new health and refill your health or reset your ability, but it does allow you to respawn, meaning you're not just constantly running behind the survivors trying to wait for a good opportunity. Good to know. So there you actually go. The 5 rules of Left 4 Dead 2 for Special Infected, with a few extra cheeky tips as well. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I said, I'll be doing a tank guide most probably. I do have a survivors version of this video, which you can watch right here. Tank video will be up there too once I have completed it. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.